Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. How are you guys today?
I'm doing wonderful, Jenny. How are you today? Hey, Skip.
You know, Jenny, I'm doing wonderful today because as long as I get to talk about my Dallas Cowboys who are back in the saddle and Kevin Durant may be coming back pretty soon as the best player on the planet and Michael Jordan, the obvious GOAT, I am great.
There's some things we can debate. Kevin Durant maybe being the best player on the planet, okay. But your Cowboys being anything good, no debate there.
Cowboys, KD, Michael Jordan. We got a good show. Oh, LeBron will be in there as well. But how about we start by talking about those Dallas Cowboys and a new quarterback, Andy Dalton, who called his signing with the Cowboys his, quote, best opportunity that was part of a big picture plan. It was also reportedly one of 6 offers that Dalton received. It's easy to see why Dallas was the best opportunity since details have come out that Dalton could earn an additional $4 million in incentives, although they will be tough to reach. So, Shannon, did Andy Dalton make the right choice going with the Cowboys?
Well, Skip, he is from Texas. He played for TCU, which is very close to Dallas. I'm in the Fort Worth area, so it's very close to Dallas. And so I think the thing for him is that it does give him an opportunity. Now, Skip, this is a blessing and a curse because I think the thing is that he's not going to get an opportunity to play a lot. So basically, he's going to have to base moving forward on his past resume. It's hard for you to deduce that, oh, yeah, Andy Dalton is the guy that we really need, considering there's a chance he doesn't get an opportunity to play. But I can understand why he would come to Dallas, given the pieces that they have around, especially offensively. Have a very talented offensive line, have a running back that's top 5 every year in rushing. 2 of his first 4 years, he led the league in rushing. You have 2 guys outside. You take a receiver in the first round. So they're loaded offensively. You could understand if something were to happen to Dak, he gets an opportunity to go in. You can understand and you can see he just might even flourish considering what he was in Cincinnati early in his career when he had A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd was healthy, and so forth and so on, Skip. So I get it. It's a great opportunity for him. Now, that being said, it also is an opportunity for him to get exposed. He goes there. He doesn't play as well as he thinks he's going to play, or people think he can play given the set of circumstances. And then people look like, well, if you can't do what you used to do with all that talent, what good are you going to do coming to my football team? So, Skip, I think it's a great opportunity, and I just don't know how much he's going to be able to showcase. It's like, Skip, you don't know how well a car works if someone never cranks it up and drive it. It might look good just sitting in the driveway, but for all we know, it doesn't even have a motor. So if Andy Dalton gets an opportunity to play, then I think it can highlight and says, okay, yeah, this was really, really great opportunity for you.
By the way, right now, my car looks really, really good in the driveway.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it has a motor because I don't even start it up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Back to Andy Dalton. This is one of the weirdest stories I've ever encountered. Completely inexplicable. And for all those years that Andy Dalton was in Cincinnati, he was maybe the most boring quarterback in pro football, and I didn't care about Andy Dalton. Now I really, really care about Andy Dalton because he very well could be the starting quarterback for my Dallas Cowboys, the Red Rifle. All of a sudden, he comes to life. Because, Shannon, the harder I look at this, the less sense it makes. 2 plus 2 do not equal 4, which is the number worn by the quarterback I have loved, Dak Prescott. So let me get this straight. Andy Dalton says he had 5 other opportunities. So 5 other teams said, please come and play for us. That sounds like it could have been a little bit of a bidding war in that some of the teams might have wanted him worse than the Dallas Cowboys did. I assume New England was in the mix. I don't know that for sure. I assume that Belichick might have wanted Andy Dalton to come in. nice fit for his system, sort of Brady-esque in the way he manages the game, and compete with Jarrett Stidham, a quarterback who's never obviously started a game and is going to try to replace the GOAT, Tom Brady. I assume Jacksonville was in the mix because his former coordinator in Cincinnati, Jay Gruden, is obviously now in Jacksonville. And I assume they might have wanted him to come in and compete with Gardner Minshew, a young quarterback still trying to establish himself in the NFL. I remind everybody, Andy Dalton in his first 5 years in Cincinnati averaged winning 10 games. Averaged.
Yes.
And he averaged in those first 5 years throwing 25 touchdown passes a game. Dak, so far in his first 4 years, has averaged 24 touchdown passes a year. So one more than Dak has in the early stint in his career. And Andy Dalton made 3 Pro Bowls and took 4 Bengals teams to playoffs. Didn't win a playoff game, but he got 4 of those Cincinnati teams to the playoffs. He was scheduled to make $17.7 million next year. And they were able to draft Joe Burrow. Love that. And they cut Andy Dalton. So suddenly he's a free agent and he has 5 other opportunities, probably for more money. And he takes no money to me. He takes a $3 million base, which was barely above what they'd already offered to pay Cooper Rush, their backup, $2.2 million. They cut him yesterday, predictably, but they were already scheduled to pay him $2.2. So they went to 3 for Andy Dalton. Think about this, with incentives that could get him to 7. But Shannon, did you look at the incentives? They're preposterously impossible to achieve. He has to go win the Super Bowl. Seriously, he has to play the majority of the snaps in a Super Bowl victory to get to $4 million more in incentives that would get him to 7 total for the year. $7 million, but really it's just 3 base for Andy Dalton. So why would he choose such no money in Dallas, except to your point? Yeah, he went to TCU. He's from the Houston area, Katy, Texas. He does have a home in Dallas. It's about a 30-minute drive from the Cowboy facility, which is up in Frisco. And he does have 2 fairly young boys, 6 and 3 years old. So maybe since they already had their off-season home there, it's like, well, let's just stay here for a year and then try to hit the market as a free agent. But Shannon, I don't get it because something else is at work here. My theory is that Jerry Jones is at work here. And we're going to do a topic later in which we're going to talk about the comments that Michael Irvin made about Jerry Jones on Dallas radio 2 days ago. And I'm just going to hit them quickly and we'll get to the depth of them later in the show. But Michael's point was he was advising CeeDee Lamb on how to deal with Jerry. And he said, Jerry didn't become a billionaire not being very persuasive. Jerry's one of the greatest dudes in the world to play for. But boy, when Jerry gets something in his head, he gets running with it. Trust me, he can be very persuasive. I believe he got into the ear of Andy Dalton and he said, hey, we have hit a crisis point with Dak Prescott. I believe that somehow, some way, Jerry all but promised Andy Dalton he was going to get some playing time this year in Dallas with that explosive offense. Because all of Andy's comments were how happy he is to be able to play for Mike McCarthy, to learn under a guy who coached Montana and Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and how he said, I wanted an opportunity to win. Well, again, he's talking like he might get a shot to actually play quarterback for this team.
Right.
Shannon, I've told you, my greatest fear is that Jerry Jones has decided his negotiation with Dak and the new agent has gone completely south. That all of a sudden Jerry is to the point. Remember, when he reaches that point of no return, as he did once upon a time with Jimmy Johnson as head coach, he just goes over the edge. Nobody has a quicker temper or a longer fuse. It takes a long time for the temper to go, but when it goes, Shannon, it just explodes. I have witnessed it detonate. And when Jerry detonates, it's over, man. He doesn't care who you are or what value you have. He just moves on to the next. And it's starting to feel like he's very happy to have a shot at Andy Dalton, and that his powers of persuasion convinced Andy Dalton that this thing has gone south with Dak Prescott to the point that either he might rescind the franchise tag that he's placed on Dak until July 15th, or it might be that Jerry just thinks Dak's going to hold out and that they are convinced he's going to miss real games and that Andy Dalton will get a shot. That's the only theory that makes sense to me of why Andy would turn down New England and Jacksonville in favor of playing behind a quarterback, Dak Prescott, that if he's signed, sealed, and delivered, Shannon, he's 64 for 64. He's never missed a game. Played in all 64 games he was eligible to play for.
Right.
Well, he's the most durable quarterback in pro football. So why would Andy Dalton choose this unless Jerry convinced him, I don't think Dak's going to be there for us when we start playing games next year. I think Andy Dalton believes he's going to play for the Cowboys.
Skip, I think there are a lot of things at play, and let's go back and look at it this way. The most glamorous job in pro sports in which you are not a starter is the backup quarterback. Because everybody thinks, Skip, you've been around this game far too long. Everybody thinks the backup quarterback is better than they actually are. And then sometimes it proves to be true. The backup quarterback is pretty good. But more times than not, he's not what you thought he was. It was just you were out on the starting quarterback. Skip, insurance is like this. We have insurance on cars and hope most people have health insurance. You really hope you don't have to use it. Skip, I don't want to have a surgery. I don't want to have to, have an accident and have to use the car. But it's nice to have. Jerry's saying, look, man, I've been at this thing. We've been at this thing with Dak for almost a year now, and we've made no headway. I don't want to have to use this insurance policy, which is Andy Dalton. But I'll be damned if I'm going to go into the season without having it. And I think he's looking at it like that. Skip, for Andy Dalton's part, they did him a huge disservice. And I'm not surprised Cincinnati did that, considering they do a lot of things backwards. Skip, they knew they were not going to find a trade partner for Andy Dalton at $17.7 million when everybody knows you're going to release him. So why would I trade even a 7th-round draft pick? Skip, forget 2020. Why would I even trade you a 7th-round draft pick in 2021 when I know I can have him on the open market? And because they waited so long to do that, Andy Dalton maybe would have had more suitors. But Skip, when you get down to it, okay, look, let's just say for the sake of argument, he had Jacksonville, he had a couple of other teams. Skip, if he goes to Dallas, he doesn't play. He feels he can re-enter the market in 2021 as a viable starter. Skip, you will go to Jacksonville and don't get an opportunity to play or don't play well. He's not going back into the job market as a starter. You remember what happened with Nick Foles. Nick Foles looked really good in Philly, didn't he, Skip? And he got all this money from Jacksonville. Oh, he going to turn it around. His former coordinator is there. Woo! And look what happened. So Andy Dalton is looking at like, even if I don't play in Dallas, they win. I can re-enter the job market as a starter in 2021, as opposed to going somewhere else, sitting on the bench, Skip, and they lose. At least if the Cowboys win the division, everybody going to say, Andy Dalton was a great sounding board for Dak. Dak is going to say how much having Andy Dalton has really helped him progress, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's going to eat that up. Andy Dalton returns to the job market in 2021 as a viable starter.
So you're saying Andy Dalton basically chose to take a year off and just sit on ice in Dallas?
Yeah. Because that's what, Skip,
I don't believe that.
Skip, think about what Jameis is doing. Now, the reports like Cam says he doesn't want a backup job. Jameis took a backup job for 1.1. What's the likelihood of Jameis starting the game in New Orleans, considering? Now, Drew Brees did get hurt last year. Teddy Bridgewater did. But for the most part, Skip, in his 20 years, he had missed a whole lot of times. I think Drew Brees might have missed, 7 7, 8 games total in 20 years as a starter. So the likelihood of him missing time isn't very good. All I'm saying is, Skip, is that Jerry is looking at it like this. I don't want to have to use this insurance policy, Skip, but if I have to cash it in, it's nice to know, even if I have an accident, I hit somebody or somebody hit me, I'm taken care of. Whether Dak chooses to hold out, I got Andy Dalton, a guy that started the majority of his career, has played really well at points of his career. All the things that you mentioned, Skip, the 4 playoff games, the 4 playoff appearances in his first 5 years. Okay, I can deal with that. And considering what I have around it, Skip, it's kind of like a Matt Castle situation. You got all these weapons around, just don't F it up, Andy. Hand the ball to Zeke, throw to the open guy, which is a lot easier said than done. What's the problem? How you mess this up, Andy? Because he knows, Skip, he gets an opportunity to play. And he messed that up. Where are you going to go start that, Skip?
Okay, I got you. It's a great move for Jerry. It's a steal of a deal for $3 million base to have that guy in your back pocket as the ace up your sleeve. But remember, Jameis chose New Orleans, and Drew Brees is not a contract holdout. Drew Brees, to my knowledge, is healthy and happy and ready to play probably just one more year. So I get why Jameis would say, I'll sit and learn from Drew and Sean Payton for 1 year. I'll go to, as he said, the Harvard sort of quarterback schools, because there's a good chance that in 1 year, Drew Brees might just call it a career. And all of a sudden, Jameis would be in the catbird seat to be the new starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. It's a beautiful situation and a great move by Jameis to take only $1 million a year, 1.1, to be ready and in position to replace Drew Brees. I don't believe Taysom Hill is viewed as the long-term starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He's still the gadget guy. He's fallen into that niche and mold, and I don't think he's going to be able to get out of that stereotype that he's in right now. So Jameis is in a sweet spot because he could get a huge new deal to be the new starting quarterback of the Saints. Dak's going nowhere. If they get him finished, if they get the deal done, signed, sealed, delivered for the next, let's say, 5 years. I know he wants 4. Let's say 4 years. The next 4 years, what does that do for Andy Dalton? He's going to have to go elsewhere. Something is up here, Shannon. I don't see it. It would seem to me that just on when you have a family to provide for, you've got a wife and 2 young children, that you'd want to max your money out. He's 32 years of age, is Andy Dalton. He said, I need to prepare for the next half of my career. You know, he feels like his career is about halfway done right now after, 9 years. But he could probably play Skip, another 9 years, certainly as a backup.
But Skip, you said something very interesting. You said that Jerry it takes a while for the fuse to burn down, but once it burns down, it goes kaboom. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, they don't get a long-term deal done. And Dak plays on the franchise tag. And here we go all over again next year. And Jerry says, the hell with this. I'm not doing this again, because if the tag is 31.3, 31.4 this year, it's going to be 35, 36, maybe even 37 next year. And Jerry says, the hell with this. I'm not going through this again. I'm moving on. Dak, good luck. Okay. He has Andy Dalton, who has a year under his system, a year under his belt in that system. So you said that he said that he got enough of Jimmy and he said, bye, Jimmy, I'm done. What if he does that with Dak after this season?
He might, and that's a good plan B theory for me. I agree with that. But my point is, Jerry had to discuss that eventual possible scenario with Andy Dalton to convince him to sign, saying that Jerry had to indicate to Andy Dalton and his agent, I don't love what's going on here. I don't feel real good about it. And as I said earlier, we're reaching a crisis point where I'm not sure he's going to be here long term. To your point, maybe 1 year at $31.4 million under the franchise tag, Maybe it's an unhappy year. You and I both agree. The tag it does nobody any good, and it never seems to create anything but ill will from both sides. You
Correct.
don't believe in me.
Yes.
I don't really trust you. We saw what happened with Kirk Cousins. He made a lot of money to go 2 times around in Washington with the tag, but they never got married. They just never got married.
Right.
And now it's feeling like this is heading for some kind of not a divorce yet, but a separation almost, where the two sides don't trust each other. It doesn't feel right. I'm going on my antenna, which are usually pretty good. Something is amiss here for Andy Dalton to say, yeah, I'll take $3 million to play for the Cowboys when you've got the most durable quarterback in pro football. Something's up where Jerry convinced him, encouraged him, persuaded him to see the bigger picture of, I don't love where this is heading. And me as a Cowboy fan, I don't love where it is headed. I thought this Dak deal would have been done a year ago. You know it, and I know. We've talked and talked about it. Jerry's MO is he gets these deals done, and he invariably overpays his stars. Invariably. This time, I believe, you don't believe, but I believe Dak is asking, demanding outrageous, out of bounds, unrealistic money that even Daddy Jerry will not pay to another one of his sons, Dak. Except, to your point, this son is standoffish, arm's length. I'm not really your son. I'm just your quarterback. I'm really just your employee, Jerry. And I like you, and I want to know you, but I don't want to get close to you. So that's happening also, where there's not this father-son relationship that occurred with Romo and Jerry, and with Dez and Jerry, and Michael Irvin and Jerry, and we can go right down the line.
And Zeke and Jerry.
Even Zeke and Jerry. Zeke and Jerry.
Yes.
Father-son sort of relationship. I'll pay. But all those guys sucked up to Jerry, kissed up to Jerry, tried to stay on Jerry's good side, and we're going to talk about it just in a few minutes here. But Michael Irvin's point is, you have to learn how to manage Jerry Jones. Dak is saying, I'm not in the Jerry management business. I'm my own player. I'm my own entity.
That's what he said.
And you're going to have to pay me supreme money, top of the line money that I think he's asking beyond what even Mahomes will ask for. So the point is, if it's reached that sort of a crisis, stalemate, impasse, you better have a backup plan, and he's got a very good one. He's got the best backup quarterback in football. He's got a proven starter, a good guy, not a wave maker, a guy you could plug and play because he's very accomplished. He's not exciting. He's not scintillating. He's not box office. But I believe Andy Dalton could win 10 games with this team as a starting quarterback, and that's all Jerry needs to know right here, right now.
Skip, I believe you said this is a marriage between the Cowboys and Dak, but I believe we're heading for the old checkbox, irreconcilable differences. I believe that's the path that we're heading on if they don't get this. But Skip, I believe it's better for Andy Dalton to sit on the bench and not play at all in Dallas as opposed to going somewhere else, playing 3, 4, 5 games, and they're not win those games. Because then we see the anticipation of what we don't know, Skip. We like what we don't know. It's like, man, look at Andy Dalton. That's why Cincinnati got rid of him. Okay, last quick point. You brought up Nick Foles. Do I believe that Andy Dalton could do for these Cowboys what Nick Foles did 2 straight years in the postseason for the Eagles? I do not. That's not the way Andy Dalton is built. He's a regular season quarterback. Nick Foles, not so great in the regular season. He's not a game-to-game-to-game guy. Andy Dalton, if you plugged him in game 1 this year, I believe he'd play very well, and you could win 10 games. Do I think he could do what Nick Foles did, especially after the 2017 season for the Eagles? That was one of the great quarterback runs we've ever seen to Super Bowl MVP and beating Tom Brady or outgunning Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. So do I think Andy has that in him? I don't. But the flip side of it is,
Nick Foles can't do what Andy Dalton has routinely done in regular seasons.
No mercy.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, time for some exciting news. Fox Sports Digital, the team that produces this podcast, has been nominated for a Webby Award for our coverage of the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in Paris. I was there covering the U.S. women's national team's incredible run as repeat champs. C'était vraiment incroyable. It was truly such an amazing opportunity and experience. So many stories I was lucky enough to help tell. If you enjoyed our work, we'd love it if you could visit vote.webbyawards.com. That's vote.webbyawards.com to support our entries. Fox Sports was nominated for Best Overall Social Coverage for our nightly show, Fox Sports World Cup Now, and for a digital feature we produced on Brandi Chastain, who looks back 20 years later on her famous PK that won the 1999 Women's World Cup. Thanks again, Undisputed listeners. We appreciate your voting consideration. And now, back to the show.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. So Kevin Durant was expected to miss this entire season while recovering from his Achilles injury. But with the NBA season potentially returning with a later end date, there has been speculation if Durant could play. In February, KD's business partner hinted he might have been ready for the Olympics when they were originally scheduled for July. However, backtracked in March saying he assumed KD would not return this year. So Shannon, if KD and Kyrie play, how far would the Nets go with probably a shortened postseason situation?
Skip, I think the biggest thing for them would be chemistry. How do they play without stepping over each other? They have some good pieces right now, Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris. They have guys, Skip, that fill a nice role. They have some nice role players. Obviously, if KD and Kyrie were to come back, they would be inserted into the starting lineup, and then you'd have a nice second unit also, Skip. The hardest thing for me, Skip, is to see how would these guys play together? Because basically you'd be just throwing them into the fire. Now, we don't know how many regular season games they're going to play to finish this regular season out. Are they going to play 5? Are they going to play 10? Are they going to get in all 20? And then the playoff start, Skip, is it going to be the best 3 out of 5? I don't think it'll ever go back, Skip. You remember it used to be 2 out of 3 in the first round, but maybe 3 out of 5 for the first 2 rounds and then the best of 7 for the conference championships and obviously for the NBA finals. So that would be my concern because Rich Kleiman, KD's business partner, said something very interesting. He would possibly be able to return for the Olympics that were going to start in July, but then said he didn't really know. He doesn't see a scenario where KD would return for the regular season or the playoffs. So, Skip, I think they're a little concerned. They don't want to chance this thing. I think that was just wishful thinking, pie in the sky. I don't really think KD would have played in the Olympics, even if the Olympics were to have gone off in late July of 2020. So, Skip, could they do some damage? Yes. They would be the second best team in the East. Still would have their hands full with Milwaukee, but I think they could potentially run through everybody else. Philly still have some issues going on. Right now, probably the third best team would probably be the Boston Celtics might cause them some problems, and the Miami Heat. But I would say they would be the second best team, second or third best, no worse than third in the East. I still give Milwaukee a slight edge.
I agree with your conclusion. I'm just going off a gut feeling, all I've seen, heard, read, and what I know about an Achilles rehab. I believe he's going to play in abbreviated playoffs and with, as to your point, an abbreviated close to the regular season. I think he is 100% healed because you know and I know that a whole year's time is plenty of time to heal the Achilles. It's dangerous.
Correct.
It's the scariest one of all. It's hard because your calf atrophies, as you know, and you have a hard time getting the strength back in the Achilles side leg. And yet, by all accounts, from all the videos that I've seen him post, he looks great. I think he's anxious to play. He told the U.S. Olympic Team Selection Committee, put his name in the hat, that he wanted to be considered, depending on how his Achilles was doing. So that was the first note that encouraged me. And then even lately, I've seen Frank Isola, one of the top NBA reporters, report, I think on ESPN, he believes that both Kevin and Kyrie will play in whatever playoffs we have. I saw Brian Windhorst on ESPN say that he's leaning toward believing that Kevin will play. So the point is, and the question is, what if he and Kyrie do play? Well, I agree with your chemistry angle, because the only thing that would separate the Bucks then from the Nets is just that Kevin and Kyrie haven't played enough together, and they haven't played enough together with the supporting cast. And to your point, I think the supporting cast is pretty good, because Dinwiddie to me is just a natural-born scorer. Yeah. Dinwiddie's averaging 21 a game. Now, they're 30 and 34. They're in the 7th spot. They haven't been very good. They've been mediocre at best. But Karis LeVert, he's like a ticking time bomb of a scorer. He recently went off for 51, and then he had a 34 recently. So he can score in bunches. And then we know Joe Harris is. He won a three-point shooting contest at the All-Star weekend. He's making 41% of his threes now. He can really shoot it. And then you didn't mention Jared Allen. He's averaging 10 rebounds a game. And don't forget, DeAndre Jordan is still there, and he's averaging 10 rebounds a game. Those two guys can protect the rim. I still believe Kevin is the best player on the planet. We saw him win back-to-back finals MVPs, and then it looked like he was all but on the way to winning another MVP and completely turning around the Toronto series a year ago, and that happened. The Achilles went. First it was the calf, then it was the Achilles. And yet you saw a big extended flash of, oh, there he is. That's Kevin Durant. Kyrie only played 20 games this year, but he was really good in those 20 games. He averaged 27.4, and he was making 39.4% of his three-point shots, going on 40% from three. That'll work. And he and Kevin, as you know, are oddly sort of soulmates. Kevin chose the Nets only because Kyrie said, hey, let's go to the Nets. And Kevin seemed to be like, okay, wherever you say, I'll go. And now they do have a rapport off the court. Could they establish one on the court? Probably pretty quickly. So I'm with you. That team would all of a sudden look loaded enough that it could at least challenge the Bucks to win some kind of a playoff tournament. And then on the other side, we got LeBron versus Kawhi and the Clippers. I don't know. I would favor Kawhi slightly and the Clippers slightly over LeBron. But, hey, would you rule out Kevin Durant shocking the world and winning it all? I wouldn't. He's too good. And he's fresh, and he loves Kyrie, and they get along so great together. I wouldn't count or write off this team. I wouldn't count them out or write them off.
Well, Skip, he's progressed to 3-on-3. At some point in time, he's going to have to play 5-on-5. He's going to have to put himself in a situation, Skip, where he really push off that leg. He really is driving. He's getting up and down the court. And the thing is, Skip, okay, when he gets tired, how many minutes are you going to play him? Is he going to be on a minutes restriction? Are you going to play him 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes a night, Skip? And all that goes into it, and the chemistry issue. Because, Skip, if they had played together, okay, I was like, okay, they know each other, they played together. But playing each other for a brief time, Skip, in the Olympics, 4 years ago, it's something entirely different having a guy on your team and trying to, not only blend that guy in, but you got to try to blend these other guys. And as you mentioned, Dinwiddie has a 50-point game. Karis LeVert has a 50-point game. Kyrie had a 50-point game this season. We know KD can get 50. He got 50 in a playoff game, last year against the Clippers. So you got four guys that potentially could go off at any point in time and give you 50. The point is, Skip, somebody's going to have to be accepting a role of coming off the bench. Now, I'm starting to feel myself, Karis LeVert said, hey, I broke my leg, came back early. I'm showing you what I can do. Dinwiddie is saying, I'm showing you what I can do. Skip, I'm sorry. All four of those guys are not going to be in the starting lineup. Somebody's going to have to say, you know what? I got to swallow my pride. Somebody's going to have to be Lou Williams. It's as simple as that, Skip. Somebody's going to have to be Lou Williams, sacrifice, come off the bench, and be offense. And like I said, I would say that at worst case, Skip, even with the chemistry issues, third best team in the East right now. Boston is playing really, really well, and we know what Milwaukee represent. But anybody else can be had, Skip. Anybody else can be had. They got enough bigs to throw at Joel Embiid, DeAndre Jordan, as you mentioned, Allen. They can throw a big body at him. Miami has tenacity. They're going to shoot a bunch of threes. But would I take them in a 5-game series over the Nets, especially if KD comes back and gets some time in the regular season and gets some timing down? I would not.
All I know is what you've always agreed with, which is Kevin Durant is a 7-foot monster with 8-foot reach. I've never seen anything like him before. He shoots it up so high. We're about to talk about, here in just a few minutes on the show, we're going to talk about Larry Bird, who shot the ball way back over his head. Well, Kevin Durant shoots it way up over his head at 7 feet tall. It is literally unblockable. And when he's on, it is literally unstoppable. He can also play defense. He can protect the rim. And he shocked me in the first big go-round with the Warriors against LeBron. I thought he would crumble under the pressure and expectation and the NBA world on the edge of its seats to watch him fall on his face because he had left Oklahoma City, which had a 3-1 lead on Golden State, and joined forces with the Warriors. And yet he rose and shone in Game 3 in LeBron's house in back-to-back finals. He took those games over, and that's when I sat back and said, this guy is really special. I think he is right now. I believe he's eclipsed LeBron as the best player on the planet. He's been out of sight, out of mind this year, so he isn't even in those kind of discussions. But I believe he would bounce back quickly and forcefully. And you'll see a rejuvenated Kevin outside of the confines of all the internal squabbling that he was having with Draymond, obviously, and to some degree with Steph in Golden State. I think you'd see a healthy and happy Kevin, excited to play. And Shannon, I got to tell you, I'm so starved for basketball. I can't help but the hair standing up on the back of my neck just talking about Kevin Durant back on a basketball court. It would be great for the NBA. It would be great to have any basketball back. I would take the G League right now, but to have Kevin and Kyrie back together on a basketball court with games that really mattered, we just snap our fingers, voila, playoffs. Let's go. I can't wait. And again, the Achilles happened in June. He tore it in June, so it will be over a year after that happened. I think he would be just fine. Surgery on Achilles has gotten better and better. I believe he would be 1,000% okay.
Yeah, Skip, and you said that Kevin Durant is really unorthodox. KD will do what you least expect him to do. Skip, nobody expected him to sign with the Warriors until he did it. No one really thought he was going to sign with the Nets until he did it. And so him playing would not surprise me because, like you said, it's been a year. The question is, Skip, how many minutes and how soon is they going to pick the 3-on-3 and let it be full court? Because at some point in time, Skip, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm shooting these jumpers. That thing feel good. You're going to have to push off, Skip. Yep. You're going to have to make a sudden, because remember, Skip, that's what got it.
I agree.
He made a sudden move, and it went. He was good. I mean, when he was just raising up and shooting, it was fine. It was when he put the ball on the floor and made that sudden move that you saw it roll up the back of his leg. So with that being said, I'm going to see how soon he progresses to 5-on-5. But like I said, Skip, at worst case scenario, they're the third best team. If they come back, Kyrie comes back, I believe they'll be the third best team in the East. Now, can they gain enough ground? Skip, I didn't look at the standing before we started. We know they're not catching Milwaukee. Milwaukee is too far gone. There's not enough games to go. I don't believe they can catch Boston. Yep. Boston is one 40-plus game. So I don't know. But Miami and Philly, y'all could get got. Y'all definitely could get got with KD and Kyrie coming back.
Shannon, if he got in shape by the time they reached, let's just say, a round against Milwaukee, I don't even know which round it might be, but if he were in shape, he's better than Giannis. I believe he would outplay Giannis on both ends of the floor. And Giannis is really good on both ends, but he's not Kevin Durant. So I say on sheer firepower, Kevin and Kyrie are better than anything I believe that Milwaukee can throw back at them. Milwaukee's got chemistry, unity, defensive stability, but they don't have Kevin and they don't have Kyrie. And I would, if they're in shape and in sync, I would pick the Nets to upset the Bucks.
Well, Skip, the thing is that what the Nets do have, they can build that wall. They got those bigs. They got Allen. They got Jordan. They got KD. So you just got to be able to keep Giannis out the paint, force him to shoot threes, force him to shoot outside. And if you can do that, because he's coming downhill, Skip, he's going to do everything he possibly can to Euro step you off the ball to get down into the paint, get easy buckets. If you can keep him out like Toronto did, you got a chance. But if you don't keep that kid away from the basket, he going to get dropped 35 and 20.
Whew. Sure make things interesting if he did return, if we could get a little basketball back. We're all just keeping our fingers crossed.
No mercy.
NFL.com released their offensive rankings for the 2020 season. The Chiefs, Ravens, and Saints rounded out the top three. The Cowboys took the fourth spot, and the Buccaneers came in fifth. Tom Brady was only given a B rating, but the receivers got an A+. So, Shannon, is this ranking for Brady and the Bucs too high or too low?
I believe it's too high. I'm not putting them in front of San Francisco. I'm not putting them in front of Atlanta. For the simple fact, Skip, we're going to have an abbreviated OTAs. We're going to have abbreviated mini camps. And so these guys have never played together. People act like last year did not happen. And everything that went wrong with New England offensively is all everybody else's fault. They don't want to give any blame to Tom Brady. Tom Brady right now is, at best case scenario, a top 10 quarterback, but he's closer to 9-10 than he is in the top 5. I think we can agree on that, Skip Bayless. He's not a top 5 quarterback currently. You can't even get around that. As much as you love Tom Brady, you can't even parse your lips to say Tom Brady a top 5 quarterback right now. And so, with that being said, Skip, how do you put him over San Francisco and what they were last year, or Atlanta coming back with all their weapons? Nah. And they got TG, who's going to be motivated because, I forgot, Tom Brady's the only guy that can be motivated. Nobody else is motivated. Only Tom Brady changed teams and going to be motivated. So, with that being said, I just think they're too high. The top 3, I got no problem with that. Kansas City, I forget Baltimore. I have no problem with the top 3, top 4 teams. But I don't think Tampa Bay should have been in the top 5 considering they have yet to play together. And some of the teams that they are ranked in front of played together last year. They have no chemistry issues, and they know they've already been in that system. So for me, I just think the Bucs are too high, and nobody wants to put any blame on what transpired in New England last year on Tom Brady. It was everybody else's fault except his.
And I say the Bucs are too low, just like your opinion of Brady is too low. It's lower than a snake. Okay, help me out here. What did we see last year in Tampa with Jameis Winston at quarterback? We saw Jameis Winston throw for the most yards in the National Football League. 5,109 yards from Jameis Winston.
Yes.
That not only led the league by a lot, that was the 8th most yards in NFL history. That's pretty great, Jameis. Way to go.
Yes.
He also threw 33 touchdown passes. Okay, that'll work because there's firepower around him. But as you well know, Jameis canceled a lot of that by throwing 30 interceptions and losing 5 fumbles. 35 total turnovers were 12 more than any other quarterback in the league. Let that sink in. 12 more turnovers by one quarterback in Tampa Bay than any other quarterback in the whole National Football League. Tom Brady had 8 interceptions with 1 lost fumble for a bad offense in New England. So that's 9 total turnovers versus 35? What if the Bucs cut their turnovers this year, pretty much the same offense, down to, let's say, 10 or 11, 12 turnovers, somewhere in there. Will that not upgrade that offense dramatically? Yes, it will. Yes. And by the way, that offense now features the greatest tight end in NFL history and a player that Brady had the greatest rapport with. The one player, Rob Gronkowski, who can get him through the night into the early season if, in fact, there's very little OTA training camp preparation. You're right. If chemistry doesn't click immediately, you got me. But I think Gronk will help him get through the early lack of rhythm with the other receivers. So if I take Tom Brady and I put him in this offense with 2 Pro Bowl receivers, and by the way, this NFL.com breakdown says that Mike Evans made a run in a stretch at Michael Thomas for being the best receiver in football last year, and that Chris Godwin also made a run for a stretch at Michael Thomas. They both made cases for a while. They were the best receiver in football. Wow. And Tom Brady's going to have those 2, plus Rob Gronkowski, plus you kept O.J. Howard and you kept Cameron Brate? Are you kidding me? And you upgraded your protection with Tristan Wirfs that they stole in the draft. They got the best of the 4 stud tackles down at 13. They traded from 14 to 13 and stole him. He went last to the 4, and he should have gone first. And he'll be the new right tackle. Shannon, okay, let me just sum this up, and then I'm going to give the ball back to you.
Okay.
I believe this offense will challenge Kansas City's for the best offense in pro football. I think it'll be neck and neck between those 2 for who puts up the most gaudy, spectacular numbers. Tampa, Tom, versus my homeboy. It's going to be a dead heat at the finish line. Photo finish.
So what we gonna do about L. Jack? Lamar Jackson, what he gonna do? You know, they got D. Benoit, they got DK,
but he doesn't have this kind of firepower.
Huh, Skip?
Okay.
Did you just see what he did last year?
Okay.
Skip, first of all, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin can, at best, the best they can hope to be for the very foreseeable future are the third and fourth best receivers in the South. Mike Thomas and Julio Jones has that on lock. Now they got to take another slot down in the NFC because D-Hop over there. So let's not get carried away, Skip Bayless.
You got 2 of them.
I understand that, Skip. And with Gronk, Skip, Gronk has been away for a year. We don't know if we're going to get to Skip. You do remember he started to wear down. His last year, he had 3 touchdowns. He had his lowest number since his rookie season. That happened.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe he recharge his batteries. Skip, if you really, Skip, he had some plays, Skip, but he wasn't the Gronk that we remember. You're looking at the one catch he had in Kansas City and the one big catch, a 29-yarder against what? But it's a season. The season is more than 3 games. It's more than a catch here or there. You do understand that, right? All I'm saying is, Skip, is that we need to see these guys play together. These guys haven't played together, and Tom is going to have to retrain the way he thinks. Tom is not a jump ball. He just doesn't throw it up like that. He did that with Randy. But how many, Skip, that was a decade ago since he last played with Randy Moss. He's not played with anybody as big as Mike Evans since Randy. So just putting the ball up, he's used to playing with smaller guys, which means he had a smaller window to put the ball in. So he needed these guys to be where they were supposed to be. Okay, now I got 6'5". I got 6'2", Chris Godwin out there. I got a bigger catch radius, so I got to change the way I think, Skip. So with Gronk, let's see what Gronk is going to give him early on, Skip. He did step away from the game for a year. Tom Brady is going to be 43. So that's going to be, that might be an issue also. But for me, I'm not putting them in front of teams that's been there. Now, you said it should be, the Cowboys, who led the league in total yards last year. And you've been raving about CeeDee Lamb. That's what everybody been calling him, Randy Moss Jr., Randy Moss 3.0. So they're going to take a step back. You like, we got the best offensive line, the top 5 offensive line, and we got Amari, we got Gallup, and we got CD, and Zeke is going to bounce back, and a very motivated Dak Prescott. And you put the Bucs in front of them?
Yes, I do. Tom Brady is the GOAT, and the GOAT is playing at a supremely high level. And the gentleman who wrote this breakdown for NFL.com did say that Brady was languishing last season in a broken offense with precious little playmaking ability at his disposal. I told you his receivers were dead last in the NFL in what Pro Football Focus ranks as separation. They could not get open. Julian Edelman, beat up, broken down shell of himself, led the league in dropped passes. All of a sudden, you give Tom Brady 2 Pro Bowlers at receiver and Gronk and 2 tight ends. O.J. Howard is a flat-out coming-of-age stud. Even if Gronk just plays sparingly, I'll take O.J. Howard over certainly anything Brady had last year in New England. He had nothing. His tight ends last year were dead last as a unit in production in the NFL. And all of a sudden, Cameron Brate, a great red zone target, as well as Gronk can be. And then just real quick, I brought him up, and I'm going to say it again. Little Scotty Miller, little rookie out of Bowling Green, out of the slot last year, has supreme short area quickness. Watch him operate this year for Brady. Brady's going to love him. And Ronald Jones, that second-round pick out of USC 2 years ago, as a running back, started to come alive at the end of the year. He had 110 yards the last game of the year against Atlanta. And I'm going to warn you again, my little man from Vanderbilt University, Keyshawn Vaughn, they stole him in the 3rd round.
Oh my goodness.
He's got James White potential. This offense has firepower, and the GOAT is going to look a whole lot more like the GOAT this year now that he actually has some viable, credible weapons everywhere he turns. Shannon, you are in big trouble, as is my homeboy.
Let me ask you a question, Skip. Of the teams that's in the top, that's ranked ahead of them, who got worse offensively? Dallas got worse offensively?
Nobody.
Did Baltimore get worse offensively?
No, in fact, I'll give you this.
So let's.
My homeboy got a little better. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a great pickup. I told you before the draft. I wish Brady would have gotten him. But Andy Reid had the foresight to snatch him at the bottom of the 1st round before Brady and company and Jason Light could snatch him. So I give you that. And Baltimore might have had, it's between Dallas and Baltimore for the best draft. They got a bunch. I told you, Devin Duvernay is terrific out of the slot. The University of Texas haunted my Sooners. They got better.
Yes.
But nobody got better in leaps and bounds, quantum leaps like Tampa did. Tampa is going from 7-9 to, I believe, 12-4 because they got the GOAT. And remember, the GOAT is going to be coached by Bruce Arians and Tom Moore. Those are great offensive minds. Shannon, they are coming.
Skip. All I'm saying is Dobbins and Duvernay on a team that had the unanimous MVP last year with a healthy Hollywood Brown. Oh, they did not take a step back. My homeboy and that offense did not take a step back. Skip, I believe the 49ers, look what they took. They got a receiver in the 1st round. Stud. Yeah, like that. Oh, and you said, and what about the old motivated guy there, Aaron Rodgers? Old discount double check. Now, he ticked off. He upset at him because they did him dirty. They did him dirty. But he going to come out there and prove him. He going to drop probably about 35 touchdowns, another 3, 4, 5, probably no more than 7 interceptions because he refused to throw more than 7 interceptions. Your guy, yeah, he throws 8 interceptions, but he throw the ball away. He led the league in throwaways. And you keep talking about, you want to talk about, his receivers led the league in no separation. He led the league in throwaways, and he was 27th in completion percentage. There's only 32. So he was 27th, so how good was he, Skip? And he was 19th in QBR. I noticed you ain't mentioned QBR in a long time. You don't say QBR like people scared to say Corona. What's wrong, Skip? Man, let's talk about QBR. You love that stat.
Shannon, you know and I know, Tom Brady simply had the worst weapons in pro football last year. And arguably, he's got top 3 weapons now, and he's still Tom Brady. And he'll be re-energized, re-motivated to show Bill Belichick, watch this. And all of a sudden, the new center of the NFL universe is in Tampa, Florida. Who would have thunk it? But that's what just happened. The momentum will carry this offense. They're going to score like crazy, and Brady is going to have a complete rebirth at age 43, and Shannon Sharpe's going to have a long year on Undisputed.
I love how when he was throwing to Hogan and Amendola and Edelman, where else could these guys go and play? Tom Brady made them like this. Now all of a sudden, they can't do anything. Oh, it ain't Tom's fault. Hold on. What happened to the guy that does more with less? I'm looking for that guy. Where is he at, Jenny? You know the guy that does more with less, that had his picture in the dictionary? More with less. Tom Brady smiling. Now all of a sudden, he's staking up the joint. It's everybody else's fault.
Shannon, he's never had receivers like this in his 20-year career in New England because Belichick never provided them. He is now about to do more with more. Wow. Novel concept.
Yeah, now I got to pull him. I mean, it happens, Skip. It happens sometimes. Sometimes the truck that used to do the pulling needs to be pulled out of the ditch. Hey, trust me, I've seen 18-wheelers on the back of a tow truck, too. Sometimes they need towing, and that's what we got, Jenny. The old 18-wheeler need to get towed home.
Shannon, it might be a long season for you. What can I say? I'm with Skip on this. Oh, and do you see Tom Brady working out yesterday? He's getting his workouts in, Shannon. So just watch out.
No mercy.
Over the weekend, LeBron posted to his Instagram that he believes Larry Bird could have dominated in any era. And Shannon, you've often said Larry was your favorite player growing up. And we know your stance on LeBron being the GOAT, but how close was Larry Bird to LeBron? I start with you.
I think they're closer than people think. I don't think people realize just how talented Larry Bird was and how great he was. Larry Bird was a career 24, 10, and 6 guy. Let that sink in. 24, double-digit guy, 24, 10, and 6. Skip, he could score the basketball when the three-point shot was not in vogue. Skip, people don't realize this. Larry Bird attempted less than 2 threes per game. Currently, there are 197 players attempting at least 2 points, at least 2 threes a game. Let that sink in. Larry Bird, arguably one of the greatest shooters of all time, only attempted less than 2 threes per game. And people are like, well, he couldn't be doing what he's doing. Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is averaging 29 points a game, and he can't shoot the ball near as good as Larry. Skip, I think LeBron scores the ball a little better than Larry because he shoots the ball. He can get downhill a little better than Larry could. Now, the rebounding is a little. I think Larry's a better rebounder for the simple fact, Skip. Larry guarded people that played closer to the basket than LeBron. LeBron defends guys that spend most of their time on the perimeter. So for him to average 7 rebounds a game when he spends the majority of his time playing on the perimeter is pretty good. But Larry was a 6 assist a night guy. Playing, Skip, Tiny Archibald one year was the point guard. And the other, for a lot of his career, Dennis Johnson was the point guard. Dennis was a 2, but he played the point. So he averaged 6 assists a night. Skip, Larry finished second in the MVP 3 straight years before he reeled off 3 consecutive MVPs. He finished top 3 in the MVP voting from 81 to 88. Skip, he was dominant. But the thing that I love most about today's players and guys like LeBron, they will give credit to the older generation, where the older generation seem a harder time. You see Charles, what did he say, Skip? Man, LeBron wanted no part of the bad boy Pistons. LeBron says, man, Larry would have been good at any era. You see, everybody thinks their era is special. But you know talent, generational talent, could have played in any era. And it's hard for me to believe, I just don't know why guys that were good in the 80s, guys that were good in the 90s, seem so unwilling to give guys that are great in the 2000s and the 2010s and beyond the credit that they deserve. But I think Larry Bird is the second greatest small forward in NBA history, behind LeBron, and I got KD third. That's my ranking. And everybody knows. You can go back to Glenville High School, you can go to Savannah State and ask, who was Shannon Sharpe's favorite player when he was growing up? And I guarantee you, they will tell you Larry Bird.
Okay. So before I address who was better, Bird or LeBron, allow me to comment on what just happened on Sunday afternoon via LeBron James on social media. Out of the blue, out of nowhere, for no apparent reason, LeBron suddenly posts an ode to Larry Bird. Huh? This is ahead of episodes 5 and 6 of The Last Dance, featuring Michael Jordan, the obvious GOAT. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, LeBron posts an ode to Larry Bird? Wait a second. Are you trying to take some of the focus off Michael Jordan and say, wait a second, everybody. Do you remember Larry Bird? He played in Michael's era. And even though LeBron didn't post this, I think LeBron is such a student of history that he knows full well that Michael Jordan never beat Larry Bird in a playoff game. Larry Bird's Celtics went 6-0 against Michael's Bulls. Never beat them. These were best of 5 series, first round series. Yep. And it was sweep, 3-3. 3-0, 3-0. So I think LeBron is trying to remind everybody between the lines subtly, everybody remember, Larry Bird was really good. In fact, it sounds like maybe LeBron's trying to make the case that even Larry Bird was better than Michael Jordan. All of a sudden, he was so cold with 4 exclamation points. Well, the problem with the post is, for certainly a student of history, it's such a duh. I mean, LeBron, it's like suddenly posting out of left field. This Magic guy, he was really good. He could really play in any era. Or this guy, Kareem, he was something special. Anybody remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? That's how it comes across. Like, does anybody remember how good Larry? Yeah, we remember Larry. We remember LeBron. No. Right?
Whoa. Yeah. No, Skip. You all because nobody else played basketball. It's from 84 until 98, nobody else played basketball other than Michael Jordan. That's what you in The Last Dance would have you believe, that nobody else won an MVP, nobody else won finals, nobody else won finals MVP. Only Michael Jordan played in the NBA. And so LeBron said, hey, don't forget about old Bird, old Larry Legend was cooking folk. Mm-hmm.
So you're agreeing with me that LeBron was actually saying, hey, everybody, remember him because he was actually better for a stretch than the quote-unquote GOAT was, the star of The Last Dance. I believe that LeBron was doing everything in his power to lead his blind witnesses away from Jordan toward Bird. And it's fine. It's a nice try. It's a little weak. It's a little lame. It's a little pathetic to me, but it's a nice try. Now let's get back to Jenny's question. How close was Larry Bird? Well, I told you last week, I rank LeBron all-time top 10, number 9. He's 9th on my list. I told you last week. And 8th on my list, Larry Bird, your favorite player growing up. So obviously, I believe that Larry Bird was just a little better than LeBron James has been so far through almost 17 years. The reason he was a little better, we're back to the intangible. Killer will, mental toughness, clutch, gene. Larry Bird was a bad man. Larry Bird took a bunch of nobodies at Indiana State all the way up the ladder of the NCAAs through March Madness to the national championship game against Magic Johnson and Gregory Kelser in Michigan State. That was extraordinary. And then he rose up again into the NBA and became Magic's arch rival, his chief number one rival. And if not for Magic, Larry would have won 5 finals, probably with 5 MVPs. But
yeah, he would.
Larry Bird, well, okay, but Larry Bird, to your point, was a little better rebounder than LeBron. I don't think LeBron actually focuses on rebounding the way Larry did. And one year, Larry averaged 11 a game, which is pretty great. Obviously, Larry was a much better shooter than LeBron ever dreamed of being, because even from the free throw line, Larry was almost a career 90% free throw shooter. And then as a passer, Larry Bird was gifted. He had that gift of seeing it before it happened. He just wasn't so much of a point guard as LeBron has often been, or point forward. But Larry one year averaged 8 assists. So you can see he had the capability of getting up toward 10 assists a game. And then let's not forget the fact Larry Bird made 3 all-defense teams. 3. He did it mostly roaming, playing center field, stealing, disrupting, just getting his hands on the ball and passing lanes. He did, but he made 3 all-defensive teams. That's hard to do when you're not exactly known for your defense. And then finally, you win 3 MVPs in a row, and you do have 3 rings, and you were Rookie of the Year over Magic. So all that adds up to me that, you know, LeBron was right. This man was so cold. He got this one right. He was so cold that he was even a little colder than LeBron has been.
Hold on. Let's see. Larry was Rookie of the Year. So was LeBron. Larry has 3 MVPs. LeBron has 4. Larry has 3 finals wins. LeBron has 3. LeBron is 3-time finals MVP. Larry has 2. LeBron has more points, more assists, more rebounds. I'm confused. Under what scenario? How do you get that? How?
Wait a second. If you're doing longevity stats, can't compete with you there, because, as you know, by 1992 in the Barcelona Dream Team Olympics, Larry's back was so bad, he could barely walk. He could barely get in the game and play his 10 minutes a night. So his career got cut short. It was ended prematurely by a chronically bad back at a time when they didn't know how to treat backs the way they do now. So, no, Larry didn't have the physical therapy. He did not have the ability to spend millions on keeping his body the best it could be. And I don't think he was a workout warrior. So it cost him a few years off the end of his career. So I can't compete with you on longevity stats. I just know who's you know, do I want the ball in Larry Bird's hands at the end of a game or LeBron's? Larry's, every time, day or night.
Look, I love Larry Bird. And I think the thing is, Skip, is close. And that's what I said it's closer than people think. Skip, the thing is that because at least, Skip, you know, we have this documentary, and I don't know how many people saw the documentary of Larry and Magic. But Skip, people don't realize, the reported, Skip, he was one, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, he was 1 steal away from a quadruple double. He had played 33 minutes, but they were blowing the team out. Casey Jones asked him, did he want to go back in the game to get a quadruple double? He said, nah, I've done enough damage tonight. Skip, now you tell me the guy, Skip, that needs 1 steal, 1 rebound, or 1 assist, or 1 point from getting a quadruple double, considering that there have only been a handful. Akeem Olajuwon had 2. They rescinded it, and he said, no, I think it was an assist short. He came back 3 days later and got another one. David Robinson and Nate Thurman. Now, they didn't keep him way back with Wilt, but they said Wilt once had double figures in all 5 stats. Assists, rebounds, blocks, and steals. But Skip, to have a quadruple double, he said, nah, I'm good, Holmes. I've done enough damage. Or when he says, you know what? I'm going to play Portland left-handed because I'm going to save this right one for the Lakers because we got them after, Skip. And he shot almost every point with his left hand.
Everything left.
If you don't think Larry Bird, Skip, if you don't think Larry Bird could have been great in this era, All you have to do is look at Luka. Look at what Luka's doing at not the shooter. Not from the field, not from the free throw line. Okay. They talk about Michael Jordan might average 40. Larry Bird might average 40.
Okay, so allow me to sum up my feelings for Larry Bird by saying that since Larry Bird, there has never been a white NBA player, certainly a white American NBA player, even in the same league with Larry Bird. That's how extraordinary Larry Bird was.
Yeah, he's the greatest white ball player ever, Skip. But with Skip, when people say Luka is the closest thing, they're saying close, like Earth is to Mars. That's how close, because we've never seen a white guy like Luka. But no, Luka ain't Larry.
No.
But he's the closest thing that we've seen, a guy that can score, rebound, and assist the basketball.
No mercy.
Michael Irvin said he appreciated CeeDee Lamb reaching out to him to tell him he wasn't disrespecting Irvin by wearing number 88. Irvin also said he gave CeeDee some advice about Jerry. Irvin said, quote, Jerry Jones didn't become a billionaire by not being very persuasive. Jerry's one of the greatest dudes in the world to play for, but boy, when Jerry gets something in his head, he gets running with it. Trust me, he can be very persuasive. Shannon, what is Irvin trying to tell CeeDee Lamb here?
Skip, Michael didn't need to tell CeeDee Lamb Jerry was persuasive. CeeDee Lamb's wearing 88. CeeDee Lamb tweeted he wanted to wear number 10 in honor of DeAndre Hopkins, who was his favorite player. He's wearing 88. And the only reason he's wearing that number is that Jerry not only implicitly implied, he explicitly stated that he wanted he wanted CeeDee Lamb to wear the number 88 because of his good friend from college, who was a confidant later, wore 88 in college. So he didn't need to tell CeeDee that Jerry can be persuasive. CeeDee's wearing 88. But here's the crux, what Michael is basically saying. Skip, you see, Jerry Jones has a very unique relationship with Michael, with Dez, and Zeke. At some point in time or another, they needed Jerry and his power to do a favor. That's the difference between them and Dak. You see, Skip, you remember last year when Zeke was holding out and Jerry was like, Zeke who? And they asked him and he said, I've earned the right to joke with Zeke. You see, Skip, if I do you a favor to the magnitude of what Jerry has done for these guys, you damn better believe I've earned the right to joke. And joke all the time if I feel like it. That's the difference. Michael, in his own sort of way, says, okay, Jerry can be persuasive, especially if, you see, he can't be persuasive for Dak. Because Dak, like, I'm going to keep my nose clean. I'm going to be cool over here. I'm not going to need you to pull any strings for me. So I'm going to be over here sitting down, and when y'all ready to do this deal, come see me. That's what Michael was talking about, Skip Bayless. You know that Jerry carried a lot of weight in Dallas. There is nothing that happens in Dallas with a football player that Jerry Jones does not know about before it hits the media. Trust me.
Okay, so remember, Michael termed this a warning to CeeDee. He said, I warned him, because he had seen already that CeeDee had gotten steamrolled by Jerry Jones. And you have to understand how to manage Jerry. If you're a star under Jerry, playing for Jerry, you have to stay on Jerry's good side, because his good side can be great for you. But it's a fine line between being able to stay on his good side, but being able to stand up to him occasionally when you believe you're right. And be able to be able to manage him by reasoning with Jerry Jones. Jerry is a reasonable human being. If you'll sit him down and talk it through with him, and you can do it by not antagonizing him or certainly detonating or alienating him. If you'll just sit with him man to man, eye to eye, sort of son to father, if you will, and say, hey, Dad, you got to understand what I was thinking here. And Michael said to CeeDee, you should have stood your ground because you believed in wearing number 10 because DeAndre was your idol in high school because you grew up in the Houston suburb called Richmond, and he was playing for the Texans, and he was you. He was what you wanted to become. They're the same type of receiver, big, strong, physical, run after catch, go up and snatch it from any DB or two DBs. Yeah, big hand, big, strong hands, big-bodied receivers with strong physical, like dominating mentality. So he wanted to be DeAndre. So if he couldn't wear number 2 because the NFL won't let you wear anything but 10 to 19 as a receiver, or obviously 80 to 89 as a receiver, well, okay, the next low number would be 10, DeAndre's number. I think it meant a lot to CeeDee Lamb to wear 10. And now he could establish his own new identity. And that's what Des even tweeted, be you, Y-O-U capitalized. So he was trying to warn him, this is how you have to manage Jerry. Because to your point, Shannon, Jerry can be the greatest friend in Dallas you ever had. Because yes, he will make calls and he will call in favors. And God only knows how many calls or favors he called in for Michael Irvin. Michael, as we all know, was involved in any number of career-threatening scrapes and situations and incidents that I can't even try to describe on live national TV. But he was involved in some really ugly stuff. And with Jerry's help, he was able to navigate through most of it. And that's what Michael is saying. You stay on his good side, but don't let him runaway train you, because Jerry is over-emotional. He's the most enthusiastic man I've ever been around. If you're around him for 5 minutes, and I told you I spent literally hundreds of hours around him, interviewing him for 3 books that I wrote on the Dallas Cowboys, he's so optimistic and enthusiastic that it's contagious. It just rubs off. I got swept up in it. I got caught up in it. And so does everybody around him, and that can be a great thing. But the point is, and I think Michael was also saying between the lines, you have to be careful with him because you have to learn to stand your ground without pushing the wrong button. Because, once again, we talked about it earlier in the show, Jerry has a long fuse to his temper, but when it blows, it just explodes. And I have witnessed it go. And when it goes, you cannot get it back. You can't undo it. You can't reason with him. You can't talk him off the ledge because he's already jumped off it. And one night, as you know, at the league meetings in, of all places, Tampa, Florida, after they had won 2 Super Bowls together, Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson, Jimmy was with all the assistant coaches at a restaurant, and they'd had a few, and Jerry just happened to see all of his coaches at the same table and walked over and proposed a toast to the Dallas Cowboys. They'd won 2 straight Super Bowls, and everybody toasted at the table except for the guy at the head spot of the table, Jimmy Johnson. And he tried again. To the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody clinked their glasses the second time. And at the end of the table, the head of the table, Jimmy just glowered at Jerry because he was sick and tired of him. And I get it. I don't blame him for being sick and tired, but he had humiliated Jerry in public one too many times. Jerry will always be the boss. In the end, he has final say, even over one of the greatest coaches ever, Jimmy Johnson. And that was that. The long fuse had burned and burned, and he exploded, slammed his drink down on that table, stormed out of the restaurant, went straight back to the hotel, saw 2 Dallas reporters sitting at the bar, called them over, and he said 2 things. He said, I'm going to fire Jimmy Johnson. And they were just like thunderstruck, like they thought he was joking. And he made the point that there are 500 coaches out there who could win a Super Bowl with this Cowboy team. because it was so loaded. And I think he picked the 500th coach on the list, Barry Switzer, who'd been out of coaching, out of football for 3 years and had never coached a down in the National Football League. And as you know, 2 years later, they did win a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer. I'm a big Barry Switzer fan. But the point was, he snapped. And Michael was right in the middle of it because Michael played for Jimmy at Miami and loved Jimmy. And all of a sudden, boom, he's gone. Well, they all saw that. That's Jerry Jones, too. That's the darker side of Jerry that you don't ever want to provoke. So that's all that Michael was trying to say to young CeeDee. Learn the ropes. Learn how to manage Jerry. Stand up to him and hold your ground when you think you're right, but do it nicely and don't push too far. But I think CeeDee just folded up right away and said, okay, Mr. Jones, whatever you say, I'll wear 88.
And that's what happens, Skip, because guess what, Skip? If you start, Skip, if you start out saying no, you can always come back and say yes. But once you start out saying yes, it's hard to tell somebody no, Skip. My brother and I, we became successful. You know, we played in the NFL. Obviously, family, cousins, uncles, and aunts didn't do that. So if you start out like every time, hey, nephew, let your uncle, let your aunt get 500, let them get 1,000. If you start out, Skip, when you tell them, no, what you mean no? No, bruh, you can always say yes. But once you start, Skip, once you start that path, so CeeDee, you've already given in. So now every time Jerry comes to you, Skip, what is he expecting to hear moving forward? Yes. It's like, Skip, my brother and I, we got my sister a truck. She called us, well, what color you think I should get? You know what I told her, Skip? I said, hell, you got to drive it. Why you care what we think? Go get the truck. Do what you want to do. CeeDee, you should have got number 10. That was the number that you wanted, or you wouldn't have tweeted it. He didn't tweet he wanted 88. He didn't tweet he wanted number 13. He said, I want number 10. That was Jerry wishes. Jerry, if you want to wear 88, wear it up under your suit jacket on game day. But I'm not wearing it.
That's true. I agree.
I would have done it, Skip.
Jerry is feeling confident about his life after everything that happened at the draft. I have a feeling he's enjoying his setup right now, guys.
No mercy.
While the GOAT debate between MJ and LeBron rages on everywhere and every day, Kendrick Perkins said that off the court there is no debate, and LeBron is the greatest of all time in that department. Shannon, you've mentioned this before, but do you agree with your guy Perk?
Yes, Skip, when we're talking about basketball players, I'm assuming now, and I'll go broader in a second, but Skip, when you look at what LeBron has done in his communities, the I Promise School, his ability to speak out on issues that normally athletes wouldn't touch, especially, we stick with the NBA. The Trayvon Martin, it was he that started wearing the hoodies. Skip, think about this. Trayvon Martin probably lost his life because he had a hoodie, and all the NBA uniforms now have hoodies. Let that sink in for just a second. So he spoke out on that. We've seen him speak out on other issues. We see his stump for Hillary Clinton. I mean, people might, take Tom Brady. Tom Brady had a Make America Great hat and tried to say, oh, that thing's just a prop. He wouldn't even, he wanted to deny it. Almost like Peter did Jesus when Jesus told him, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cocks crow. He's like, I would never do that, Jesus. And show him, behold, when they came, I don't know that man. Tom Brady, oh, that's just a prop. That ain't nothing. LeBron James, I'm on stage. We need to put this woman in office. So, Skip, he's taking chances that other athletes before him would never take it because that brand, because as Michael famously said, the other party buys sneakers also. So for him to take the stand that and I think because he's done it, we've seen other guys do it. We've seen other athletes in basketball and other professional sports take opportunities to say their political affiliation or tweet out where we see injustices and going on in our community. We'll see guys tweet that and say what a miscarriage of justice. Whereas before, Skip, guys wouldn't say a thing on that. For me, Skip, it's just hard for me to put someone ahead of Muhammad Ali, ahead of Jackie Robinson, given the times, because you have to realize when Jackie did what he did, I think it was in 47, Skip, and Ali did what he did in the 60s, Skip. In the 60s were the height of the civil rights. It didn't get any more combustible than that. And the man says, I'm not going to kill someone that's done nothing to me. When it's the people right here that's turning their dogs, putting their water hose, denying me and others that look like me equal rights, civil rights. It's like, I'm not doing that. For what? And you know what? Do what you want to do. You want these belts, take them. You want to take my career, take it. But I'm not going still. And Jackie and Mr. Robinson having to come up, Skip, when they were the insults that he had to go through, and people would say things and spit on him and do certain things towards him. It's hard for me to put LeBron in front of them, but I think those guys made it easier for LeBron because he says it's always the right time to say and do the right thing. And I think it's made it easier for LeBron. But if we're talking about basketball players, it's hard for me to say someone is bigger than LeBron. Now, Kareem, Skip, you have to realize, Kareem was at the summit in Cleveland, Skip, as a college player. People don't realize Kareem was there.
He was.
With Ali, with Jim Brown, with some of the all-time greats. He was there. So, but Skip, I don't think he's been as outspoken on certain issues. Now, behind the scenes, we know what he converted to the Muslim faith. But LeBron James, Skip, it's not even close. It's not even close. And I think that's the vast difference between he and Mike.
Okay. This is deep and complex, but
it is.
Allow me to make the point, and I think you would agree, every opportunity I've had on this show, as critical as I've been of LeBron on the court, I have applauded him off the court for the many powerful stances he has taken against racial injustice and social injustice. And the I Promise School is legendary to me, what he has done off the court. All of that is correct. But when our man Kendrick Perkins goes to the point of it's not even a debate that LeBron is the GOAT off the court, man, Perk, be careful there because Shannon makes strong, great points. You're eliminating a lot of history. And one name you didn't invoke that I want to throw into the mix here, Shannon, the great Bill Russell was also at that summit backing Ali that day in Cleveland.
Yes.
And just remember, Bill Russell was the first black superstar in the NBA, and he was breaking through in a city of Boston that did have a racist component to it. Let me just go that far. And then Bill Russell became the first black. He did. Bill Russell, first black head coach, because he was obviously the player coach for 3 years of the Celtics. So he was even that. And finally, he was a powerful member and force in the Black Power movement who was constantly outspoken against racism to the all-white media in Boston. Well, that's breakthrough, man. That is, you are threatening your very career, which brings us back to Kareem. He didn't have a loud voice, but he had a strong voice. He didn't scream it, but he said it softly and he said it powerfully. And he even went so far as to say about Michael Jordan, and I've never defended Jordan off the court, but he said of Michael Jordan, he chose commerce over conscience. Well, that's a deep, powerful way to say what the truth was.
Yes.
And then we get to Muhammad Ali, and just allow me to come on top of what you said, just to amplify a little bit what you said, because Ali was my all-time favorite athlete. And I was growing up in the 60s while he was taking charge in the 60s. And he joins the Nation of Islam because he did not want to carry on with what he called his slave name, Cassius Clay.
Correct.
And then he chose not to join the military and risk his career. And to your point, LeBron's never actually risked his whole career to take a stand the way Ali did.
Right.
And he said, I got no quarrel with them Viet Cong, and he didn't. And so he said, I believe in my faith so deeply, I don't want to go fight in Vietnam. I don't believe in it. And an all-white jury convicted him of draft dodging, and he didn't go to jail, but he went into exile. And what did he do, Shannon? For 3 years of his prime, he could not box. He lost 3 prime years of earning power and legacy building, and he went on tours of America speaking at colleges against the Vietnam War when it was not fashionable to speak out against it, and to campaign against racism in America. It was powerful. It was not fashionable. He didn't have Twitter or Instagram. He didn't have anybody else on his side from the black community doing exactly what he was in athletics. I mean, he had Dr. King until he was assassinated, obviously. But the point was, Ali was breaking ground and losing. He lost his career for 3 long years and then came back with a fury, and it was sensational to watch. But yeah, you're right. Even Colin Kaepernick, if I can bring it up to contemporary times, Colin risked his career and he lost it to take a stand. So as many great things as LeBron has done, he hasn't gone to the point of having to risk not having basketball anymore. And I'm not trying to diminish any way, shape, or form what LeBron has done, but man, that's powerful when you're going to risk everything to take a stand. That's when you put your money where your mouth is. And those people did.
Skip, because Skip, you have to understand that when he did what he did, Muhammad Ali was very unpopular. He was even unpopular in the black community because there were other black men that had to sign up for the draft and they had to go fight. So he was not popular.
Agreed.
Even like Dr. King, it's funny, Skip, how it comes. Skip, I think the thing for me, I think it really changed for Muhammad Ali, and he had done great. When people saw him light the torch in Atlanta in 1996, he was no longer the guy that was quick-witted, Skip, and had all those, could get into the verbal jarring matches and have everybody laugh, make everybody laugh. They looked at him and said, what this man endured, he's lighting a torch. That's what this is about. Now, all of a sudden, he became a sympathetic figure because at the time, he was castigated. Nobody was talking about Muhammad Ali in the term. Nobody thought. I guarantee you, Muhammad Ali probably, if you probably ask his wife, Lonnie, did Muhammad think he would be what he became later in life? It would be very interesting to hear us say when he was doing what he was doing, did he think he would become this beloved figure? I can assure you, Dr. King had no idea he was going to become beloved because Skip, everybody, even people that were against him, quote him now. It's the same thing with Ali. Skip, LeBron has been unbelievable. I don't know if we've seen an athlete this big, obviously, Skip, because now you have all these media platforms. So, Arthur Ashe, Skip, we forgot about Arthur Ashe. We forgot about him and what he went through. But Skip, LeBron James, as far as basketball, and now in today's time, Skip, it's hard for me to see someone bigger than he is and taking a more outspoken stance.
I got it. Can I please add one more name to the list? I don't know if people remember Craig Hodges. I know you do, Shannon, because he played with Michael Jordan on his first 2 championship teams. And 3 years ago, Craig Hodges wrote a book called The Triumphs and Struggles of an NBA Freedom Fighter. In 91, before Michael played in his first finals against Magic, because of the Rodney King beating here in the LA area at the hands of 4 white police officers, Craig Hodges encouraged Michael and Magic to boycott Game 1 of the finals, take a stand for the black community and racial injustice, social injustice. And he says in the book that Michael just flat out told him that's crazy and that Magic told him that's just too extreme. And Craig said his response was, what's happening to the black community right now is very extreme. And because of his outspoken stances against Michael and the league, after another year and one more championship, he basically got, as you call it, whiteballed from the league, and his career was over at age 32. And remember, he's one of the greatest three-point shooters ever. He won 3 straight three-point contests at All-Star Weekend. So there's another name of a guy who risked his career to try to make a statement. He wasn't a star, but he risked it all.
And remember, Skip, he said that he actually tried to give, if I'm not mistaken, I forget who the president was at the time. It might have been 91, 92.
Bush.
So it might have been
First Bush. Yes.
Bush. First, the dad.
The first.
And he tried to, because Skip, remember everybody said, well, instead of just being so outspoken, why don't you go sit down with the president and try to talk to him? He said, I did that. He said, I tried to take him. But Skip, I didn't go, but they tell you what you can and can't do. You are not to pass anything. You are not to have any isolated conversation. So they nip all that in the bud. So this notion will take something and talk to the president. That's not happening. It's a photo op. That's what you're going there for. Take the picture, get up out of there. Because normally, Skip, they got like 5 or 6 other groups that's coming in to take photo ops also. So they're not, it's great.
Right.
But I agree, Craig Hodges, and he has some very outspoken things to say about Mike.
Yeah, and remember, when he went to the White House after the first championship, he wore a dashiki to make that statement.
He did.
Whew, powerful discussion, guys. Good stuff all around from both of you.
No mercy.
So NFL.com ranked how vulnerable each division champ was coming into this season. The Packers took the top spot despite going 13-3 and reaching the NFC Championship game. Right behind Green Bay at 2 were the Eagles due to the competitiveness of the NFC East. So Shannon, do you agree with this?
Man, Gil really extended himself. Skip, you know Gil a long time. I know Gil. I see him every year I go back to the Super Bowl. Gil is, I think, 87 years of age. He was the one that built the Cowboys team. He drafted Bob Lilly, Michael Irvin, Randy White, all those greats. So Gil's resume is impeccable, Skip. But I think the thing for me, when I look at it, I can see Green Bay. And it's not because of what happens on the field. I think they got some turmoil brewing, Skip. I think they created something that didn't need to be created, and I think it's going to be a problem. And in each one of these teams, there's only one team, I really think. When you look at it, I think it's Minnesota. I don't think I don't think Chicago, I don't think Detroit is a threat. Philly, I think the only threat is the Cowboys. But Cowboys, they win. Skip, you already know what y'all gonna do. It breaks my heart to know that you're gonna be disappointed again. You think I like this, but I really don't. Because when you hurt, I hurt. And when you're hurt, I'm hurting, but I'm laughing as soon as I get from in front of you. So, oh, you know that, huh? But I think it's Green Bay, Skip, because I think what transpired with them moving up to take Jordan Love, Skip, I think they created a problem. I really do, and I think it's going to have a rippling effect throughout that team, and I can see, So I do agree with Gil's list, number 1, but Philly ain't losing that division.
Okay, let me take them one at a time. Green Bay was fluky last year. I'm still not sure how Green Bay went 13-3 and got to the NFC Championship game with what was the 15th best offense, the 15th best points scored last year. They did have a surprisingly good defense. It finished 9th in points allowed. So it was a top 10 defense, sort of out of left field, out of nowhere. But how many Mondays did we come in and say, we're not sure how Green Bay won that game or that one or that one? Aaron Rodgers had his career worst QBR and his career worst completion percentage. Those ranked 18th and 21st among quarterbacks, respectively. And I thought Aaron Jones was actually more valuable last year than Aaron Rodgers. Pro Football Focus ranked him 5th of the running backs. But I still say it was mostly the turnover differential. They were tied for 3rd that got them through the night and tilted the playing field occasionally in their favor when it didn't deserve to be. So again, fluky. Do I trust Kirk Cousins? Not exactly. Fox Bet has both these teams over-under on wins at 9, so they both look like 9 and 7-ish kind of teams. I thought Minnesota had a better draft. I like the first 2 picks.
Yeah,
I like Justin
too.
Jefferson. I like Jeff Gladney a lot out of TCU. I think those are 2 good first-round picks. And you're right, Aaron now has an issue hanging over his head and shoulder pads. Do they really want this kid to play sooner than later? Which brings me to another quarterback controversy self-inflicted in Philadelphia. They draft Jalen Hurts in the second round. I think it's going to be hard on Carson Wentz. I just think on paper, Dallas just got better. It's close, but the Cowboys got better. They have a better head coach. They had a better draft because I think they had the best draft. They stole CeeDee Lamb in the first round. They added pieces on defense, draft, and free agency. It just got better. I'm sorry it did. And they went out and signed a top 5 kicker in place of the worst kicker in football last year, Brett Maher, Brett the Threat, as I called him, who had the worst stats in the league and cost them, I believe, 2 games. And they went 8-8, so they could have been 10-6. I give Dallas the edge. Now, I'm going to sum this up by saying the team most likely to fall out of the top spot is the one Gil Brandt picked at number 4. I believe the Patriots are ripe to fall. And Shannon Sharpe, guess what team plays the toughest schedule next year off records from last year? New England does. New England got worse. They lost Brady. They obviously didn't have Gronkowski. I kept waiting for Belichick to do something in free agency and something in the draft, and he did next to nothing. They are going forward with Jarrett Stidham in place of Tom Brady. Are you kidding me? I think that they're going to be lucky to finish 8-8. Buffalo is better. On paper, Miami is better now. Miami had a very good draft and a terrific free agency. And again, Ryan Fitzpatrick got hot at the end of the year. He beat the Eagles. He won at Foxborough. He went 80 yards against Belichick's defense to win the game in the last 2 minutes in Foxborough. So could they be better? They could be better. The Jets are still the Jets. I'm sorry, but they are. But when I look at the schedule, I'm looking at non-division games for the Patriots next year. The away games, they have to go to Houston, go to Kansas City, go to both LAs, big cross-country trips, go to Seattle. And at home, they have to deal with Baltimore and San Francisco on top of the Buffalo games and the Miami games. They're going to be lucky to finish 8-8. To me, they're not going to win the division. So I'd say the best odds to fall, I would put on the Patriots.
Skip, I think the biggest, but that just goes to show you, and I think the number one reason why he didn't put them number 1 was Coach Belichick. I think the thing is he's looking at it, do I trust Sean McDermott? Do I trust the coach at Miami? Brian Flores? He basically said, I trust Coach Belichick. And that depleted offense more so than I trust these other coaches, even though they've upgraded their entire team. And so that's the way I'm looking at it. But I look at Philly, Skip, they're going to get Lane Johnson back, who missed the last month. They'll get D-Jack, who missed basically all of last year. They get Alshon back. They traded for Goodwin. They traded for, they drafted Jalen Reagor. Skip, I believe they're going to be better. The tackle that they selected last year, first round, he fills in for Jason Peters. Skip, I believe they're going to be better than last year. So, yeah, they got this one in the bag. NFC East champ. Go on and send me my shirt. I'm going to give me an Eagle shirt already. NFC East champ 2020, baby. In the bag. In the money. Got it already.
Who's your starting quarterback? Who is it? Jalen Hurts?
Don't worry about all that.
Jalen Hurts is going to take you to the playoffs?
Who is your starting quarterback? Is it Andy Dalton? Is it Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton's going to lead us to the playoffs.
Okay.
10 wins. 10-6. Old 10-6 Andy. I got the red rifle.
I really hope I really hope that. Okay, BB gun. That what you got, like you told me, the musket. Now he the red rifle. When you was thinking about him going to New England, he was the musket. Now he the red rifle again.
Okay,
but I hope Dak is watching this.
Okay.
I hope Dak is watching this. Dak, you see how quick your man done turned on you, Dak. I hope you watch it.
Yeah. Get it done, Dak. Get it done.
The first thing I thought about when Jalen Hurts went to the Eagles was, how is Skip going to handle this? Because that is seriously what I was thinking about.
No mercy.
Charles Barkley said despite being a longtime friend of Michael Jordan's, he doesn't see the two of them reconciling anytime soon. Barkley said that MJ took offense to his critical comments about how Jordan conducted himself as a GM. Barkley said the comments were made as an analyst nearly a decade ago and that MJ has his number if he ever wanted to talk. So, Shannon, do you have a problem with Michael Jordan refusing to make peace with Charles Barkley?
Skip, you shouldn't have no problem with this. Because you ain't had no problem with him not making peace with Isaiah. You ain't had no problem with that, right, Skip? Skip, it's tough. And this is what I tell people when you get into this business. And a lot of times it's hard for people, Skip, because that means you're going to have to criticize guys you played with and you played against. And everybody's not willing to do that. I was willing to do that from the jump. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to call it like I see it. And I've had guys like, man, bro, you were hard. I was like, bro, I got a job to do. You do your job, you make my job easier. You don't do your job, you still make my job easy. Because I'm going to tell it like I see it. Skip, and that's the hardest part about being a professional athlete. Because we don't like to hear that we've done something wrong or we've said something wrong. And that's why I've considered myself very fortunate that I've always had friends that tell me what I needed to know, not what I wanted to hear. And Michael, you got to tell him what he wants to hear. You got to tell him you're doing an unbelievable job. Bruh, do you see the lack of success you're having in Charlotte? But Charles, there's nothing you can do. You have a job, you have a responsibility to do. You did your job. And again, remember, Skip, I told you, there can be no freedom without forgiveness. I'm sorry.
Okay. I do have some sympathy for Charles Barkley here. And I agree with your point. You do your job the right way. You do it objectively on players that you played with and against. Love that about you. And I like that about Charles. He made a tough love comment about his dear friend Michael Jordan that ended their relationship because he went inside behind the scenes and said, what was the comment? Let me get it exactly here. You've got to quit hiring, stop hiring them kiss asses, is the way he put it. Okay. I've told you from the start, Michael Jordan was the greatest performer I ever saw in any sport, but some of the things that drove him were not pretty, and you're not going to get me to condemn him here today for what made him great. Yes, he was ruthless. Yes, he was heartless. Yes, he took no prisoners, and he constantly was feuding or beefing with this guy or that guy, and sometimes he fabricated a feud just to fuel him. That's what he was made of. And if you were in his inner circle and you dared to cross him, you were crossed permanently off that list. There's no forgiveness in Michael Jeffrey Jordan. That's what made him great, because he played without remorse, without compunction. He did not care. He was cold-blooded. All that mattered was win at any cost. He wouldn't cheat, but at any emotional cost, he was going to beat you.
Right.
And the point here is that, do I love it? Away from basketball, what he did to Charles? No, I don't love it. But it is vintage, authentic Michael Jordan. So I'm sorry. And by the way, quick comment on Charles's comment. I don't believe that hiring kiss asses is why Michael has been the worst GM in the history of basketball. And I've often called him that. Again, you say I'm not objective about Michael Jordan, but I am about Jordan the GM. He is a pathetic picker of players, judge of talent. Yeah. And it's not because he surrounded himself with sycophants and quote unquote friends. It's because he just doesn't have a great feel for what works in players who weren't as good as him. He keeps saying, I'm Michael Jordan. Why can't you be as good as I was?
Exactly.
We can't. We're sorry. We can't.
Right.
So he's been the owner and operator of the Charlotte franchise for 13 years. They've made the playoffs 4 times and never won a playoff series in the NBA, where it seems like half the teams make the postseason. So again, you can't defend it, but I will defend Michael for just being Michael. It's not pretty. It's kind of ugly, but in sum total, it made for the greatest player or performer in the history of sports. I've never seen anything like Michael Jordan, and this was why. And Shannon, I witnessed him fabricate feuds one night with Vashawn Leonard, the Heat in January of the Last Dance year, 98. Vashawn Leonard's Heat had taken apart the Bulls in Miami. It was 90-72. And the return match was in February at the United Center. And somehow Michael decided that it was Vashawn who had mouthed off in Miami. And I don't think he had. So every free throw that Miami shot that night, every free throw Miami shot that Vashawn went back to be back on defense and stand at the far free throw line, Michael didn't occupy his space in the lane for the Bulls. He went back with Vashawn, leaned over and trash talked in his ear every free throw that Miami shot and basically told him, you ain't you know what. And how do you think you can guard me? And he torched Vashawn Leonard for 37 points. Well, that's just Jordan. It was ruthless. It was heartless. It was actually just wrong. But that's who he was, and that's why he was.
Skip, if we're friends and you tell me something that you believe is for my best interest, I'm not going to get upset. Now, Skip, if you divulge a secret, something that only my closest friends know, yeah, I'm going to forgive you. We just not going to be on that level of friends. I'm going to go my way, you go your way. But I think Barkley offering an honest assessment of why he thinks Michael is not as successful as a general manager as he was as a player. I don't think that's grounds for him to no, I can't never speak to you again. How dare you criticize? Bruh, I got a job. Skip, you just laid it out. 13, 14 years, 4 playoff appearances, never getting out of the first round. All these players, think about everybody that you drafted. Bust. The only guy that wasn't a bust is Kemba Walker, and because you're such a small market, you can't give him max dollars. But if you look at all the other guys, Kid Gilchrist and Adam Morrison and all these other guys, Skip, they've been bust. It's as simple as that. And so, Skip, the greater the player, I believe the greater the player, the harder it is for him to pick the talent. Because he's like, why can't you do? It was so easy for me. Yeah, that's why you were an all-time great. Because you made it look easy. Everybody can't do that.
No mercy.
Frank Gore is signing with the Jets, which will make it his 5th NFL team. Gore is 3rd all-time on the rushing list with just over 15,000 yards behind Emmitt Smith and Walton Payton. So, Shannon, is Gore a Hall of Famer?
God dang it, Skip, you're doing everything you can to get my Hall of Fame pass pulled, aren't you? You keep asking me these questions. I've told you before I hate answering these questions because when I talk, they're like, he's in the Hall of Fame. That means he doesn't want the other guy to get in. Skip, I think Frank Gore is in the Hall of Longevity and the Hall of Very Good, Skip. I do not think Frank Gore is a great back. He's put up unbelievable numbers over an extended period of time. But, Skip, if you ask me to be 100% honest, Skip, I don't believe Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer. I don't think he was ever dominant. I think he was very good. I think he's played a long time. He's been very consistent, but I don't think he's great. I don't think he was a dominant player, and so I would say no.
Way to go, Hall of Famer. You just gave a very objective and very correct answer. I've often told you there is this thing called the Hall of Very Good, and that's where Frank Gore belongs. My golden rule for Hall of Fame is, if I have to think twice, you're not in my Hall of Fame because I have high standards. Frank Gore is going to finish third all-time in rushing. That's very, very good. But in no single year of his career did I ever think, man, Frank Gore is transcendent. He's the best running back in football right now. I never thought that about him, but he's very good.
Nope.
So I'm sorry, you're in the Hall of Very Good, Frank Gore, and that's pretty great.
And that's the thing, what I tell people, I mean, there's good, there's longevity, there's consistency, but I'm talking about great, dominant. You like, man, I gotta have that guy. If I had that guy, is he a difference maker? I don't see it, Skip, and I'm sorry, people are like, well, you just hate. No, I'm not hating. I'm being objective and as honest as I possibly can.
You're not.
I just don't see it.
And he's going to be 37 next week on May 14th. Impressive. Nonetheless, that is it for Undisputed today, guys. Join us again, same time tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.